The graduation cap, a flimsy square of black, trembles in my hands. Dad's voice, that infuriatingly gentle tone he reserves for bad news, cuts through the phone. Maya, honey, Emma's Princeton ceremony is the same day. We have to choose her. You understand, right? Choose her. The words are a punch to the gut. 24 hours until I walk across that stage as Stanford's valedictorian, and it's clear I'll be walking utterly alone. The metallic taste of pure, unadulterated betrayal floods my mouth. I stare at the shimmering gold summa cum laude cord draped over my chair, a mockery now. How many all-nighters did this cost? For what? A repeat performance? Vividly, I remember the sting of their absence at my high school graduation, all for Emma's critical college orientation weekend at some forgettable East Coast liberal arts school she hadn't even committed to yet. Some things never change. Story of my life, I muttered. My chest tightens with that old, familiar ache, a vice squeezing the air from my lungs. Third choice. Always bloody third choice. Not even clawing my way to the absolute top of my Stanford class, engineering no less, could change the family pecking order. Emma, the golden child, and Maya, well, Maya the afterthought. She's so independent, they'd coo to their friends, a convenient excuse for their chronic neglect. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, the moment of truth arrives. I'll stand on that stage under the California sun, either finally, gloriously vindicated in front of everyone who does see me, or I'll be the living, breathing, summa cum laude proof that, for the Chen family, even my absolute perfection isn't, and never will be, enough. The thought doesn't even sting anymore. It's just a cold, hard fact I've orbited for years. A new feeling, cold, sharp, wonderfully decisive, settles in my stomach, eclipsing the ache. Clarity, razor sharp, liberating. Right, I say to the cap as my fingers release it. It thuds onto my desk with satisfying finality. If Robert Chen and precious Emma can't witness my triumph, the whole world will. I pivot to my desk. My laptop gleams. I flip it open, the startup chime of fanfare for the revolution brewing. Showtime, I whisper, a tight, feral grin stretching my lips. And they are not going to like this show. All right, Maya, I murmur to the empty room, voice surprisingly steady. Old Maya would cry, wouldn't she? Just sit there and take it. But new Maya makes them pay. Operation Valedictorian Vindication is officially a go. My fingers attack the keyboard. They want a show for Emma? Because her delicate little Ivy League feelings might get oh so hurt if she's not daddy's center of the universe for 5 whole minutes? I snort. Please. Oh, I'll give them a show, all right, a spectacular one. But the star, darling family is me. The one you conveniently forgot exists when it really truly matters. What's the most public, most deliciously ironic way to be seen when your own family tunes out? News, media. A viral sensation built on pure, unadulterated truth. Yes, I say louder, the idea blooming like a poisonous, beautiful orchid. Let's brainstorm some headlines, shall we? Stanford valedictorian, daughter of aspiring Senator Robert Chen, publicly snubbed for sister's graduation. Ooh, that's got bite. Subtitle, Family Values or Just Values Emma Moore? Perfect! I giggle, a sound bordering on maniacal, but it feels liberating. I picture the local news first, then national. The shocked emojis, the sympathetic anchors. Can you believe it, Chuck? Her own family, what kind of monsters are these people? The online chorus of "How could they?" will be a symphony. Dad's always so hyper-concerned about his image. I muse aloud, tapping a pen against my chin as I start drafting an email. Mr. Family Values, Mr. Integrity, Robert Chen, champion of the people. Unless those people are, his actual non-PR approved daughter, who just happens to be brilliant. Sarcasm drips, a satisfying counterpoint to years of forced smiles and swallowed barbs. He thinks Emma's Princeton ceremony is the superior photo op? Because it's Princeton and she finally managed to graduate? I roll my eyes dramatically at my own reflection in the dark screen. Honey, please, I'm Stanford valedictorian. That trumps a pity party participation trophy from an Ivy any day, especially when it's her second public attempt at a graduation because the first one wasn't grand enough for mommy and daddy's political scrapbook. Pathetic. My fingers fly, drafting, deleting, rephrasing. Let's see how Senator Family First Chen likes this particular family drama hitting the news cycle the literal day before his big Bay Area fundraiser. A slow, predatory smile spreads across my face. Oh, the damage control is going to be epic. I almost feel sorry for his campaign manager. Almost. The plan forms, fast, furious, a beautiful, intricate weapon of mass familial destruction. Or, just a little bit of overdue justice. No more quiet suffering. No more hoping they'll get it someday. Someday is canceled, folks, I announced to my computer screen. Someday is now. My stage, my rules, my narrative. They chose her, I state flatly to the blinking cursor. The words no longer holding that familiar, gut-wrenching sting of rejection, but a newfound, steely resolve. Fine. They made their bed. And now, I choose me. And I choose to make them. And everyone they're trying to impress, watch precisely what they so casually threw away. The cursor blinks. The world awaits. And if they don't like the show, I laugh. A short, sharp sound that bounces off the silent walls of my dorm room. Well, to quote the great American philosophers of our time, tough luck, chuckleheads. They really should have shown up. This isn't just about a missed graduation anymore, not by a long shot. It's about 18 years, a lifetime of being systematically sidelined, of my achievements being meticulously downplayed so Emma's decidedly average efforts could somehow shine brighter in their deluded eyes. It's about them banking on me just taking it, again and again, like a good little doormat. Wrong, I tell the screen, my voice a low, satisfied growl. So very, very wrong. This doormat, she just grew teeth and she's about to bite. The coldness in my stomach isn't just decision. It's pure, unadulterated ice. The kind that preserves, that strengthens. The kind that's about to trigger a very public, very messy avalanche right in the middle of their perfectly curated lives. Tomorrow they'll understand. Oh, they will finally understand. Or at least they'll understand they messed with the absolute wrong daughter. The email drafts from last night, a flurry of righteous indignation and meticulously crafted pitches, sit minimized on my laptop screen. But email felt too slow, too easy to ignore. No, this required a voice. My voice. My fingers. Steady as a surgeon's. Or perhaps more accurately, steady as someone with absolutely nothing left to lose. Dance across my phone screen, pulling up the number for the biggest local news station in the Bay Area, KNTV. Perfect. They loved a bit of local scandal, especially one with a David and Goliath feel, or in this case, a smart daughter versus oblivious political family feel. 1 deep breath, 2, I hit dial. The phone trills once, twice, then a crisp, professional voice answers, KNTV News, this is Carol. Hi, Carol, I begin, my tone deliberately calm, measured, with just a hint of wronged party urgency. My name is Maya Chen. I'm a Stanford University student, and I believe I have a story that might interest your viewers, especially with graduation season upon us. I pause for effect. I'm this year's valedictorian for the School of Engineering, actually. Summa cum laude, the whole shebang. Okay, Miss Chen, Carol says, a hint of polite skepticism in her voice. What kind of story are we talking about? This was it. Showtime, take 2. Well, Carol, it's a bit of a human interest piece with let's call it a family values angle. I let that hang in the air. You see, my graduation ceremony is tomorrow at 2 p.m. Big day, right? Valedictorian speech, the cap, the gown, the proud family in the audience. Another pause, except my family won't be there. Oh? Carol's interest visibly peeks through the phone line. Why is that? That's the kicker, I say, injecting a note of rueful disbelief. They've chosen to attend my younger sister's graduation instead. Hers is at Princeton, also tomorrow. I let that sink in. Now, I understand busy schedules, I really do. But this isn't just any graduation for me. And here's where it gets newsworthy. My father, he's Robert Chen. I hear a sharp intake of breath on the other end. Bingo. Yes, that Robert Chen, the one running for state senate on a platform of, and I quote, unshakable family values and being there for California's future generations. It seems his own future generation, the one graduating top of her class from Stanford, is a little less of a priority when there's a more politically photogenic East Coast graduation to attend. Perhaps one that aligns better with certain donor demographics? I add that last bit with a saccharine innocence I don't feel. So, the Stanford valedictorian, ditched by her family values senatorial candidate father for her sister's Ivy League ceremony. Interested in that story, Carol? The silence on the other end lasts only a second before it's replaced by an excited crackle. Carol, bless her opportunistic journalistic heart, is practically purring. Miss Chen, that is quite a story indeed. Extremely interested. My producer is already waving at me. Are you available to come down to the studio, say, within the hour? We could potentially get something on the evening news or at least a web exclusive out very quickly. My lips curve into a smile that's all teeth. An hour is generous, Carol. I'll be there in 30 minutes. My voice is steel sharp, all traces of the polite, wronged student gone, replaced by the focused determination of a woman on a mission. Just tell me where to park. Absolutely. My producer Tom will meet you at reception. This is big, Miss Chen. Thank you for calling us. No, Carol, I say, grabbing my keys and the simple, elegant dress I'd planned to wear to my lonely valedictorian dinner tonight. It would do just fine for a TV debut. Thank you. I hang up before she can gush further. 30 minutes. My heart is hammering, a wild drumbeat against my ribs. But it's not fear, it's adrenaline. It's the exhilarating rush of taking control, of finally flipping the script. I glance at my reflection, eyes bright, a flush on my cheeks. I look like a woman ready for battle. Good. Because that's exactly what this is. My own declaration of independence, televised for all to see. No more being the quiet, overlooked daughter. Today, Maya Chen steps into the spotlight on her own damn terms. I'm halfway to the station, navigating the pre-lunch traffic with a focus I usually reserve for complex coding problems, when my phone erupts with the all-too-familiar ringtone I'd assigned to my father, the Imperial March. How fitting. I let it ring twice, savoring the impending panic I know is on the other end, then tap the answer button, putting it on speaker. Well, hello, Father, I say, my voice dripping with a sweetness that could curdle milk. To what do I owe the unexpected pleasure? Checking in to see if I've spontaneously combusted from parental neglect? Maya, what in God's name have you done? Robert Chen's voice, usually so smooth and sonorous for his campaign speeches, is tight with panic, almost a squeak. Success. The news station must have put out a teaser, a little clickbait headline to whet the public's appetite. Something like, Chen campaign rocked, daughter claims family snub for graduation. Oh, I hope so. Done. I feign innocence, merging smoothly onto the freeway. Why, whatever do you mean, Dad? I'm just on my way to run a few errands. Pick up some, public vindication. The usual. Don't you dare play coy with me, young lady, he barks, the senatorial veneer cracking to reveal the sputtering, image-obsessed man beneath. KNTV just put out an alert, a news alert, Maya. Stanford valedictorian daughter of Senate hopeful Robert Chen speaks out about family betrayal. Emma saw it. Emma's crying her eyes out. She says her special day is ruined. I have to physically bite back a laugh. Ruined. Oh, we're just getting started on ruined. Emma's crying? Gosh, that's a tragedy. Is it because she realized her Princeton participation trophy suddenly looks a bit underwhelming next to actual achievement? Or is it the horror of not being the sole focus of your attention for 5 minutes? I pause. And betrayal? Strong word. I prefer long overdue course correction. Or perhaps the high-achieving chicken coming home to roost. Your choice, really. This isn't a joke, Maya, he splutters. You are jeopardizing everything. My campaign, our family's reputation, Emma's delicate emotional state. Our family's reputation? I counter, my voice hardening. You mean your meticulously constructed public image? The one built on the lie of a perfect supportive family that magically only includes one photogenic daughter when it's convenient. As for Emma's delicate emotional state, she'll manage. Perhaps this will be a valuable life lesson for her. Sometimes, actions have consequences, even for the golden child. You need to call them back, Maya. Retract your statement. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. His voice is pleading now, laced with a desperation that is music to my ears. We can fix this. We'll come to your graduation too. We'll charter a jet after Emma's thing. We'll make it work. Too little, too late, and far too obviously a lie born of panic. Charter a jet? I laugh, a sharp, humorless sound. Oh, Daddy, that's rich. Save the jet fuel. I have a feeling my graduation is going to be far more memorable this way. And don't worry about your reputation. I'll be sure to be very clear about the values you truly champion. I signal to exit the freeway. The KNTV tower is in sight. Gotta go, Dad. Big day ahead. Wouldn't want to be late for my close-up. I hang up on his sputtering protests, a fierce, triumphant grin spreading across my face. The taste of betrayal from this morning is finally being washed away by the sweet, intoxicating flavor of imminent justice. The KNTV studio is a whirlwind of controlled chaos. A young, harried-looking intern meets me at the reception, already speaking into a headset. Miss Chen? Tom Jenkins, associate producer. Carol said you were on your way. Right this way, makeup is waiting. We're hoping to get you on for a live segment in about 15 minutes, if you're comfortable with that. Live is perfect, Tom, I say, my voice cool and steady, despite the flutter in my stomach. 15 minutes. It's happening even faster than I imagined. He leads me through a maze of corridors to a brightly lit makeup room. A woman with kind eyes and a formidable array of brushes and palettes descends upon me. Just a little something to take the shine off, dear, she says. You've got great features. Thanks, I manage as she starts to work her magic. I catch my reflection. The woman staring back looks composed, confident, almost serene. The cold, decisive feeling from last night has solidified into a core of pure, unshakable resolve. This isn't just about my parents anymore, or even about Emma. This is about me, reclaiming my narrative, my worth. Tom reappears. Anchor's ready for a quick pre-chat. Follow me. He ushers me onto the actual news set. It's smaller than it looks on TV, dominated by a large desk and an array of imposing cameras. The studio lights are incredibly bright, almost blinding, but instead of making me shrink, they feel like a wave of warmth, like spotlights finally finding their mark. Vindication. That's the word. This is what it feels like. Across the desk, a familiar face. Sandra McMillan, one of KNTV's lead anchors, smiles warmly. Maya, thank you so much for coming in on such short notice. This is quite a compelling situation. Thank you for hearing me out, Miss McMillan, I reply, shaking her offered hand. Her grip is firm, professional. Please, call me Sandra. Now, we don't have much time before we go live, but I just want to understand the core of what you want to convey. Our viewers will see a Stanford valedictorian, an incredibly accomplished young woman. They'll hear your father is a public figure. What's the heart of your message today? I take a breath, the studio lights glinting in my eyes. This is it. Millions of people are about to witness what my own family chose to ignore. The thought sends a shiver of pure, unadulterated power through me. The heart of my message, Sandra? I meet her gaze, my voice clear and strong. It's about the difference between curated images and actual family. It's about the quiet damage done when achievement is selectively recognized. And ultimately, I smile, a small, knowing curve of my lips. It's about a young woman who decided that if her own family wouldn't show up to celebrate her success, she'd find an audience who appreciated the value of hard work and a story that needed to be told. Sandra's eyebrows lift slightly. Well, Maya Chen, she says, a note of respect in her voice. I think our audience is going to be very interested indeed. 10 seconds to live, everyone. The adrenaline from the television interview was still thrumming through my veins when I got back to my tiny Palo Alto apartment. I'd barely kicked off my shoes, a triumphant smirk still playing on my lips as I replayed Sandra McMillan's impressed expression, when my front door burst open with such force that it slammed against the interior wall, making a picture of a serene beach scene tilt drunkenly. And there, framed in the doorway like a disheveled fury, was my sister, Emma. Her normally immaculate blonde hair was escaping its complicated updo in frazzled strands. Her eyes were bloodshot and puffy, and mascara had carved black, tragic rivulets down her cheeks, stark against her pale skin. The pièce de résistance, however, was the powder blue Princeton graduation dress, or what was left of it. It was creased and wrinkled, as if she'd slept in it on a cross-country flight, which, judging by the sheer speed of her appearance, she probably had. For a moment, I just stared, a genuinely surprised laugh bubbling in my chest. Talk about a countermove. It was almost impressive in a pathetic, overly dramatic sort of way. "Emma," I said, my voice deceptively calm, leaning against the kitchen counter. "Fancy meeting you here. I thought you'd be, graduating, or at least enjoying a celebratory mimosa on Daddy's dime. Did Princeton run out of diplomas? Or did you just miss my shining face that much?" She didn't answer, just stood there heaving, her chest rising and falling dramatically. If this was a performance, she was gunning for an Oscar in the most aggrieved starlet category. She took a stumbling step inside, then another, her designer heels clicking erratically on my cheap laminate flooring. The air around her practically vibrated with a chaotic energy, a mix of jet fuel, expensive perfume, and sheer, unadulterated rage. Finally, she found her voice, or rather a screech that was a pale imitation of it. "You!" she shrieked, pointing a trembling, perfectly manicured finger at me. The gesture was so cliché I almost applauded. "You selfish, spiteful little viper! You're destroying everything!" Her voice cracked on the last word, a sob catching in her throat. "Do you have any idea at all, what this insane publicity stunt of yours is doing to our family?" I raised an eyebrow, pushing myself off the counter. "Our family?" I echoed, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "That's a good one, Emma. Which family are we talking about exactly? The one that conveniently forgets I exist whenever your social calendar has a conflict? The one that's consistently made it clear there's only room for one star daughter? And, surprise, it was never me." I walked slowly towards her, my earlier amusement hardening into a cold, steady anger. "Or are you perhaps referring to the curated Chen family trademark brand, the one Dad trots out for photo ops and campaign brochures? Because let's be honest, sis, that's not a family. It's a carefully managed PR exercise. And I, for one, am tired of being the footnote they try to airbrush out." "It is a family," she insisted, tears welling up again, making her mascara situation even more dire. "Mom and Dad love you. They just get busy. Princeton was important to me." "Important enough to make my Stanford valedictorian ceremony something I've worked my entire academic life for, completely irrelevant," I challenged, my voice dangerously soft. "Important enough for them to miss my high school graduation for your college orientation to a place you weren't even sure you wanted to attend? Don't insult my intelligence, Emma. They made a choice. They always make a choice. And it's never, ever me. So forgive me if I'm not shedding any tears over the potential tarnishing of this sacred family unit you're suddenly so concerned about. It was pretty tarnished to begin with from where I'm standing." I gestured around my modest apartment. "This is where I live, Emma, alone. This is where I celebrated getting into Stanford, alone. This is where I found out I was valedictorian, alone. So please tell me more about this wonderful, supportive family I'm supposedly destroying." Emma stamped her foot, a petulant, childish gesture that looked utterly ridiculous on a woman her age, especially one clad in a wrinkled Ivy League graduation gown. "This isn't just about you and your petty grievances, Maya," she seethed, her voice rising again. "This is bigger than that. Dad has built his entire political campaign around his image, around family values. Your little televised tantrum, your stunt. It could cost him the Senate race. Do you understand that? The Senate?" I let out a slow, deliberate breath, a small, humorless smile playing on my lips. "Oh, I understand perfectly, Emma. He built his campaign around a lie, a carefully constructed facade of familial devotion that conveniently excluded one inconveniently high-achieving daughter." My smile widened. Then maybe he should have valued his actual family, not just the parts that looked good on a campaign poster. Maybe he should have shown up. Maybe, just maybe, if he'd practiced some of those family values he's so fond of preaching, he wouldn't be in this mess. I tilted my head. It's a classic case of reaping what you sow, wouldn't you agree? Or is that too complex a concept for the Princeton curriculum? He did it for us, for both of us, she cried, her face contorting. He wanted us to have the best, to be seen as accomplished, successful. Accomplished and successful looks a lot like being present for your children's milestones, Emma, I retorted coolly. Not like picking and choosing which daughter gets the parental spotlight based on potential political gain. And funny, I don't remember being consulted on this grand plan for us. I just remember being consistently sidelined so you could shine brighter. So forgive me if I don't feel particularly grateful for his brand of support. The air in the small apartment felt thick, charged with years of unspoken resentment, finally arcing between us. I could almost hear the hum of the ancient air conditioning unit struggling against the suffocating heat of her anger and my own chilling resolve. Emma sank onto my lumpy futon, the fight seeming to drain out of her, replaced by a weary, almost desperate frustration. The wrinkled blue silk of her dress pooled around her like a deflated parachute. She buried her face in her hands for a moment, her shoulders shaking. When she looked up, the fury was gone, replaced by a raw, pleading expression that almost made me feel a flicker of something other than contempt. You don't get it, Maya, she said, her voice now low and hoarse, stripped of its earlier hysteria. This isn't just about one missed graduation or whose picture looks better. It's been the plan for years. I waited, an uneasy feeling coiling in my stomach. This sounded like more than just parental favoritism. This sounded orchestrated. What plan, Emma? I asked, my voice quiet. She took a shaky breath, fiddling with a loose thread on her dress. Dad's been grooming his political image around his accomplished daughters for as long as I can remember. Ever since he first decided he wanted to run for something bigger than the local school board. Her eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw a hint of something that wasn't just self-pity. It was a shared, albeit unacknowledged, burden. It was always about presenting this perfect family package. Robert Chen, devoted husband, doting father of two brilliant, successful girls. You, the STEM prodigy, quiet and intense. Me, the well-rounded, socially adept one, good at everything, excelling in the humanities. My mind reeled. Grooming his image? So what, we were just props? Character references in his political biography? The metallic taste of betrayal, so familiar from the morning, returned with a vengeance, but this time it was colder, deeper. Not props, exactly, she mumbled, looking away. More like strategic assets. He always said, my daughters are my greatest testament. He'd tell his advisors, look at Maya, top of her class in a demanding field. Look at Emma, poised for leadership. It was always about how we reflected on him. She sighed, a heavy, weary sound. Every award you won, every debate I aced, every prestigious internship, it all went into the Robert Chen, proven leader, proven father narrative. He'd map out our achievements on a timeline, like campaign milestones. The air conditioning unit hummed on, a monotonous counterpoint to the suffocating truth settling over the room. My entire life, my relentless pursuit of excellence, Emma's own achievements, had it all been just fodder for his ambition? So this whole Princeton versus Stanford thing, I said slowly, the pieces clicking into place with sickening clarity. It wasn't just about choosing your graduation over mine. It was about which asset provided the better optics right now for his Senate run. Emma nodded miserably. An East Coast Ivy League graduation, he said, played better with a certain demographic of donors and national media than another Stanford success story, which he figured was already banked for his local image. He actually used those words, Maya. Banked. She finally looked directly at me, her eyes filled with a dawning, shared horror. He said your valedictorian speech would be great for local press later, but my Princeton graduation was the prestige national narrative builder. It was never just about us, Maya. It was always about the campaign. Emma's final words, it was always about the campaign, hung heavy in the stale air of my apartment. a sickening epitaph for a sisterly relationship I hadn't even realized was on life support. The image she'd painted our lives as meticulously curated plot points in Robert Chen's political ascent was so grotesquely cynical it left me momentarily speechless. We were just strategic assets, our achievements banked like political capital. The air conditioning hummed its dreary, monotonous tune, a soundtrack to the slow implosion of any lingering naivete I might have harbored about my family. Emma sat slumped on the futon, the fight gone, replaced by a hollow-eyed weariness that mirrored my own burgeoning despair. It was in this tableau of shared, dawning disillusionment that my phone, sitting forgotten on the kitchen counter, suddenly buzzed, a sharp, intrusive sound that made both of us jump. I glanced at it. A text message. From Miss Rodriguez, my thesis advisor, the one faculty member at Stanford who'd consistently seen me, supported me, and treated me like a human being with a brain, not just a GPA. My heart gave a little lurch. Miss Rodriguez rarely texted unless it was important. Wiping suddenly damp palms on my jeans, I picked up the phone. "What now?" Emma asked, her voice barely a whisper, eyes wide with a new kind of apprehension, as if bracing for another blow. "Is it Dad? Is he calling to yell at you again?" "It's from my thesis advisor," I said, unlocking the screen. A single picture was loading, accompanied by a short line of text. My breath hitched. The picture solidified, stark and clear. There was Dad, beaming, one arm around a radiant Emma who was clutching a Princeton diploma, both of them standing in front of a Princeton banner. They were flanked by two men in suits who looked suspiciously like campaign aides, and another photographer was visible in the background, camera raised. The text from Miss Rodriguez read, "Maya saw this on a political feed covering your father's East Coast donor outreach." Caption says, "Robert Chen celebrates with daughter Emma at a special Princeton pre-commencement ceremony yesterday following a family emergency. Thought you should see it. Call me if you need anything. R. Yesterday." The word screamed at me from the tiny screen. Family emergency. The phone slipped from my numb fingers, clattering onto the counter. I stared at it, the image of my beaming father and sister burning into my retinas. Yesterday. Not today. Not the same day as my valedictorian speech, my moment. They weren't choosing between two same-day graduations. They had already had Emma's graduation. The carefully constructed narrative Dad had fed me, Emma's Princeton ceremony is the same day we have to choose her, was a bald-faced, premeditated lie. The air left my lungs in a silent whoosh. "Maya, what is it?" Emma was beside me now, her earlier hostility forgotten in the face of my obvious shock. She picked up the phone, her eyes scanning the screen. I watched her face pale, her jaw go slack. "Yesterday?" she breathed, her voice incredulous. "But we flew in this morning. He told me the main ceremony was today, the one all the parents attend. He said he pulled strings to get me into that one because I was so upset about your TV thing." She looked from the phone to me, her eyes wide with a horrified confusion that I knew was genuine. "He said this flight, this whole confrontation with you, was because he was trying to manage the fallout and still make it to my official ceremony today." She shook her head slowly. "A family emergency? What family emergency?" The pieces began to slot into place, each one a fresh stab of betrayal. "Tomorrow," I said, my voice hollow, thinking of my own graduation, now less than 24 hours away. "When I'm supposed to be walking across that stage, accepting my diploma, giving my speech, I'll be doing it knowing this." I gestured vaguely towards the phone, towards the smiling, deceitful faces. Knowing they didn't just miss my graduation, they actively lied to orchestrate their attendance at Emma's, and they did it a day early. My gaze sharpened as a new, horrifying thought struck me. They staged a fake family emergency to attend Emma's graduation early. That's what Miss Rodriguez's text said. "Not for you, Emma, not to get you out of a jam. They did it for them, for the campaign photographers, to get the perfect photo op, the devoted father shot, probably before jetting off to some fundraiser last night while I was blissfully unaware, still thinking they were agonizing over an impossible choice." Emma sank back against the counter, looking like she might be sick. "So, The tears Dad said I was crying this morning when he called you? The ones about you ruining my special day with the news alert? He told me to say that if you brought it up. He said it would make you feel guilty. She covered her mouth with her hand. Oh my God. He was playing me too. He made me fly out here, confront you, act like a hysterical shrew. All while he'd already had his perfect Princeton moment with me yesterday? Her voice cracked. He used me to create a diversion, to make it seem like today was the crisis. Welcome to the club, sis, I said, a bitter laugh escaping me. The Robert Chen's Pawns Club. Population, his daughters. The initial shock was beginning to morph into a cold, hard fury. The sheer audacity of it, the layers of manipulation. They hadn't just picked Emma. They'd orchestrated a complex deception to benefit the campaign, using both of us as puppets in their elaborate show. He needed a reason for a private ceremony yesterday, probably to fit his campaign schedule. So, family emergency it was. That gets him the photos without the crowds, allows him to control the narrative. Then he manufactures a conflict with my graduation today, tells me he has to choose, making him look like a father facing a tough but understandable dilemma if it ever got out. I shook my head. And sending you here? That was just to muddy the waters, to make me the bad guy, the one causing family drama right when he's trying to look saintly. The betrayal this time cut deeper than I could have ever imagined. It wasn't just the casual cruelty of being overlooked, of being the lesser daughter. This was a calculated, manipulative scheme, a testament to just how little my truth, my achievements, my actual feelings mattered in the grand calculus of Robert Chen's ambition. He hadn't just chosen Emma, he'd chosen a lie. A carefully constructed, politically expedient lie over me, over my moment, the one I had earned through years of relentless work, the one that could never be replicated. The metallic tang of betrayal was so strong it almost choked me. For a moment, the sheer weight of it, the crushing realization of their indifference, threatened to break me. I could feel the familiar sting behind my eyes, the tightness in my chest that had been my companion for so many years. But then, something shifted. Deep within the searing pain, a new feeling began to emerge. Something crystalline and hard, like a diamond forming under immense pressure. It was the absolute, unshakable certainty that I was done. Done hoping. Done trying to earn their approval. Done being their collateral damage. They chose their lie over my truth, I said, the words quiet but resonant in the small, stuffy apartment. I looked at Emma, truly looked at her, perhaps for the first time, seeing not just the golden child, the favored sister, but another victim, another pawn in our father's elaborate game. Her face was ashen, her eyes filled with a bewildered pain that mirrored my own. The anger I'd felt towards her for so long seemed to dissipate, not into forgiveness, but into a kind of weary understanding. She was just as trapped in his narrative as I was, albeit with better perks. Maya, I didn't know, she whispered, her gaze fixed on the damning photo on my phone. I swear I thought he was genuinely trying to make things right after your TV interview, in his own clumsy way. I thought flying here yelling at you? I thought it was what he needed me to do to protect the family, to protect him. And you were the good daughter, doing his bidding, I finished, not unkindly, just like always. I picked up my phone, my fingers surprisingly steady as I saved Miss Rodriguez's photo. Evidence. Hard, irrefutable evidence. A cold, clear purpose was solidifying within me, banishing the last vestiges of grief. They had chosen their path, their perfectly staged, politically motivated lie. Now I would choose mine. And mine would be the unvarnished, unapologetic truth. He wanted a narrative? I said, more to myself than to Emma, a dangerous glint in my eye. Oh, I'm going to give him one. And this time, I write the ending. The crystalline thing inside me wasn't just resolve. It was a weapon, forged in betrayal, and I was finally ready to wield it. The game wasn't over. It was just entering a new, far more public phase. The damning photo from Miss Rodriguez's dad and Emma, beaming at their staged Princeton photo op from yesterday, burned on my laptop screen. Emma was still in my apartment, a ghost of her former Prada-clad self, slumped on my futon, the fight completely extinguished, replaced by a stunned, hollow-eyed comprehension of our father's machinations. My own resolve, that crystalline shard forged in the fresh furnace of betrayal, was now razor sharp. No more hesitations. No more wondering if I was doing the right thing. They had drawn the battle lines with their lies. I was simply choosing the terrain for the inevitable explosion, and that terrain was going to be very, very public. My fingers flew across the keyboard, drafting a new email. Short, concise, devastating. The recipient list was a who's who of national news outlets, major networks, influential political blogs, and every single local Bay Area news channel, including the one I'd just visited. The subject line? Evidence. Senate candidate Robert Chen's family emergency deception. Attached was the photo from Miss Rodriguez, clear and irrefutable. The body of the email was even simpler, a single ice-cold sentence. To whom it may concern. Attached is photographic proof that Family Values Senate candidate Robert Chen lied about a family emergency to attend a private campaign photo opportunity at his daughter Emma's Princeton graduation yesterday. A day before his other daughter, Stanford valedictorian Maya Chen, is scheduled to graduate. I hit send, a small, decisive click that echoed in the sudden silence of the room. Then I did it again and again, sending it out to the entire list, ensuring maximum saturation. Emma watched me, her eyes wide. "Maya, are you sure?" she whispered, her voice hoarse. This will destroy him, everything he's worked for." "He destroyed any claim to my respect or silence first, Emma," I said, my voice devoid of heat, a flat statement of fact. "He built his platform on lies, using us as props. It's time the public saw the real Robert Chen, not the carefully curated image. He's the one who made this bed. I'm just pulling back the covers for everyone to see what's underneath." I leaned back in my chair, a strange sense of calm washing over me. The die was cast. "Besides," I added, a grim smile touching my lips, "he wanted a national narrative builder. I think this qualifies, don't you?" Before Emma could respond, my phone, still on the counter, began to ring, the caller ID flashing an unknown number with a Washington, D.C. area code. That was fast. "You should probably get that," Emma said faintly, gesturing towards the ringing phone. "Something tells me it's not a congratulatory call." I picked it up on the third ring. "Maya Chen speaking," I said, my voice cool and professional, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. "Miss Chen, this is Alastair Finch, Robert Chen's campaign manager." A brisk, authoritative voice snapped, all business, no pleasantries. The lack of surprise in his tone told me they'd already seen the email and were in full crisis mode. "I think it's imperative we talk, immediately." "Oh, Mr. Finch," I replied, matching his clipped tone. "I imagine it is. What can I do for you? Or rather, what can you possibly do for me at this point?" "Listen, Maya, may I call you Maya?" He didn't wait for an answer. "There's been a significant misunderstanding, a breakdown in communication. Your father is devastated by this situation, truly devastated. He loves both his daughters equally." I snorted. "Is that the official party line now, Mr. Finch?" Because the photographic evidence and years of lived experience suggest a slightly different narrative, one involving blatant favoritism, calculated deception, and a rather cavalier approach to the truth when it comes to his lesser daughter. Alastair Finch let out an audible sigh, a sound freighted with the weight of 1,000 political scandals. "Okay, look, let's cut the crap, Maya. This is bad. This is incredibly damaging for everyone. But it's not irreparable. Not yet." His voice shifted, becoming smoother, more conciliatory, the practiced cadence of a man used to negotiating his way out of tight corners. "We can fix this. We want to fix this. Your father is prepared to make a full public apology. We can arrange a joint family interview, primetime, your choice of network, you, Emma, your parents, united. We can frame this as a family working through a painful but ultimately resolvable misunderstanding, exacerbated by the pressures of a political campaign. Think of the narrative, Maya: reconciliation, forgiveness, family strength. It could be powerful." "Powerful PR, you mean?" I countered, unmoved. "A carefully staged performance to salvage his crumbling image." It doesn't have to be just PR, Finch pressed, his voice earnest. This can be real, and there's more. Your father is prepared to make a substantial donation in your name to any charitable organization or academic endowment of your choosing. A very substantial one. Think of the good you could do, Maya. A new scholarship, a research grant. Whatever you want. The offer hung in the air, a blatant, desperate bribe wrapped in the flimsy guise of reconciliation. For a fleeting second, I considered it, the power, the money, the possibility of forcing some semblance of public respect. But it was a fleeting thought, extinguished by the cold, hard reality of their years of deceit. It's too late, Mr. Finch, I said, my voice quiet but firm. You had your chance. He had 18 years of chances. You all made your choice when you decided to lie, to manipulate, to prioritize a photo op over basic human decency. I could hear him start to interrupt, to offer more, but I cut him off. The time for fixing this with carefully worded apologies and blood money is over. The truth is out there now. Let the voters decide what kind of family values they want representing them. I took a grim satisfaction in ending the call, clicking off before he could utter another syllable. The silence that followed was profound, broken only by Emma's shaky breathing. Not 10 minutes later, as the first tendrils of the story began to snake their way onto online news tickers and social media feeds, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a voicemail notification. From Emma. But Emma was still in my apartment, staring blankly at the wall, looking utterly broken. Confused, I tapped the notification. Her voice, when it came through the speaker, was a frantic, tearful whisper. Recorded so recently it must have been made while I was on the phone with Finch, or in the moments immediately after. She must have stepped out or into the bathroom. Maya, oh God, Maya, it's even worse than we thought, her recorded voice choked out, raw with a fresh wave of hysteria and guilt. After you got that picture while you were doing what you just did. I called Dad. I screamed at him. I asked him how he could lie to us both like that about the family emergencies, about yesterday. There was a pause, filled with a ragged sob. He tried to deny it at first, but then he broke. He told me everything. My blood ran cold. What more could there possibly be? Emma's voice continued, laced with disbelief and self-loathing. The Princeton thing. It wasn't just a convenient photo op they moved up. It was a complete setup, Maya, from the very beginning. Dad engineered the conflict. He found out your valedictorian announcement date weeks ago. Then he contacted Princeton. He promised them a massive donation to their new library fund. A 7-figure donation, Maya. I felt the air leave my lungs. On one condition, Emma's voice trembled. That they arrange a special private graduation ceremony for me, and that they schedule it, or at least announce it as scheduled, on the exact same day as your Stanford graduation. He wanted the conflict. He created the conflict. My mind struggled to process the sheer Machiavellian audacity of it. He hadn't just seized an opportunity, he'd meticulously crafted the entire scenario to his advantage. He said, Emma continued, her voice barely audible, he said it was the perfect way to manage perceptions. He could publicly choose me, the safer Ivy League choice for his national image. And then, if questions arose about you, he could play the agonized father forced into an impossible choice card. He thought it made him look both decisive and empathetic. And the library donation? That would buy him goodwill and another glowing headline with Princeton. He even laughed, Maya. He said, "It's just politics, Emmy Bean. Sometimes you have to create your own weather." I can't. I'm so sorry, Maya. I've been such a fool, such a willing pawn. I'm at the airport. I'm going home. I can't face you right now, but I had to tell you. You deserve to know all of it. The voicemail ended with a click. The final, ugliest secret was out. He hadn't just lied. He had orchestrated my heartbreak, my public humiliation, as a calculated political move. I didn't have time to fully absorb this latest, most venomous revelation before my apartment began to feel like the epicenter of a media earthquake. My phone started ringing off the hook reporters, bloggers, even a producer from a national morning show. Email notifications pinged relentlessly. Glancing at a news website, I saw the headline, Chen campaign in turmoil. Daughter's photo evidence suggests deception. It was spreading like wildfire, just as I'd intended, only now fueled by an even more damning truth I hadn't yet released. The story of the family emergency was bad enough. The calculated creation of the conflict for a library donation was a scandal of epic proportions. I ignored the calls, the pings, the mounting chaos outside my door. There was only one thing left to do. Numbly, I walked to my closet and pulled out the simple black graduation gown and the summa cum laude cord, its gold threads now seeming to mock me with their hollow brilliance. Tomorrow, I would walk across that stage alone, not just in the physical absence of my family, but alone in the knowledge of their complete and utter betrayal. But as I carefully laid the gown out on my bed, a strange sense of clarity settled over me. I wouldn't just be walking alone. Thanks to my father's machinations and my own refusal to stay silent, it felt like the entire country, an audience far larger and more discerning than my family had ever been, would be watching. And they would know the truth. The air in Stanford's Memorial Auditorium was thick enough to chew, a soupy mix of parental pride, graduate excitement, and an undercurrent of something else, a buzzing, palpable tension that had little to do with academic achievement. I knew, as I sat on the stage with the other dignitaries, that a significant portion of that buzz was because of me. The reporters were impossible to miss, clustered near the aisles, cameras poised, microphones like metallic snouts sniffing out scandal. My story, initially a local news item, had exploded overnight, fueled by the photo I'd circulated and then, undoubtedly, by the even more damning details of the Princeton Library donation setup, which must have been leaked by someone within the imploding Chen campaign or a guilt-ridden Emma. I hadn't released that part myself, but its stench was already in the air. The Dean of Engineering was at the podium, his voice a warm baritone as he concluded his introduction. A student whose intellect is matched only by her tenacity, whose groundbreaking thesis on neural network optimization has already garnered national attention. It is my profound honor to introduce your class of 2025 Valedictorian, a young woman who truly embodies the spirit of innovation and resilience, Miss Maya Chen. Applause thundered through the auditorium, a wave of sound that washed over me as I rose and approached the podium. My hands were surprisingly steady as I adjusted the microphone. I looked out at the sea of faces, students, families, faculty, and the hungry press. The weight of the moment pressed down on me, an almost physical burden, the crushing loss of my family as I knew it, warring with the fierce, exhilarating blaze of vindication. This wasn't just a valedictorian speech anymore. It was a reckoning. I took a deep breath, my gaze sweeping the auditorium one last time, and then I began to speak, my voice clear and carrying in the vast space. Thank you, Dean Miller. Fellow graduates, esteemed faculty, proud families, and members of the press, I added, a small, pointed smile touching my lips. Welcome. A ripple of nervous laughter went through the non-student portion of the audience. I was about to launch into the carefully crafted, yet now heavily revised opening of my speech, when a commotion at the back of the auditorium made me pause. Heads turned. A collective gasp, quickly suppressed, rippled through the rows. My blood ran cold. I knew even before I saw him who it was. Pushing his way past ushers with a desperate, almost unhinged look on his face was my father, Robert Chen. Campaign photographers, like vultures scenting a kill, scrambled in his wake, their cameras flashing, capturing his dramatic, unscheduled entrance. He looked terrible. His usually immaculate suit rumpled, his hair disheveled, dark circles under his eyes. He was a man unraveling in public. He strode a few steps down the center aisle, stopping as security began to converge. Maya! He called out, his voice raw, amplified by the auditorium's acoustics, though not by a microphone. Maya, please, wait, let me explain. A hush fell over the auditorium, so profound I could hear the whirring of the news cameras. Every eye was on me, then on him, then back to me. This was it. The confrontation I hadn't planned for, but perhaps deep down had expected. My moment of triumph was being gate-crashed by the architect of my deepest pain. I gripped the sides of the podium, my knuckles white. For a wild second, I wanted to scream, to rage, to demand he be thrown out. But then I met his desperate gaze, and all I felt was a vast Arctic calm. I leaned into the microphone, my voice steady, though my heart hammered against my ribs. Explain? I repeated, the single word amplified, carrying a chilling weight. You had 18 years to explain, Dad. 18 years of choices, 18 years of priorities. I think your actions have spoken far more clearly than any words you could offer now. The crowd murmured, a shocked, excited hum. Security personnel were now flanking him, their expressions stern. He ignored them, his eyes still locked on mine. No, Maya, you don't understand, Robert pleaded, his voice cracking, desperation etching every line on his face. He took another step forward, only to be gently but firmly blocked by a large security guard. I chose Emma because she's your political asset and I'm your inconveniently intelligent liability? I finished for him, my voice ringing out, sharp and clear through the sound system. The audience gasped audibly this time. I could see the shock on the faces in the front rows, the scribbling of reporters. Let me save you the trouble of spinning this, Dad. You chose Emma because her Ivy League graduation, especially one you could manipulate for timing and photo ops, played better for your national image. Because my Stanford valedictorian speech, my actual achievements, were just local press later, something to be banked while you focused on the prestige narrative builder. The phrases he'd used, the ones Emma had relayed, dripped from my tongue like poison. You chose her because perfect grades weren't enough. Perfect scores weren't enough. Being the top student at one of the world's leading universities in one of its most demanding programs, none of it was ever enough to outweigh the political calculus, was it? My voice, though filled with a righteous anger, remained controlled, each word a precisely aimed dart. Because in your world, a daughter's worth is measured not in her accomplishments, but in her utility to your ambition. He flinched as if struck, his face paling under the harsh auditorium lights. There was no applause now, just a stunned, breathless silence as my words hung in the air. I reached down beside the podium for the manila envelope I'd placed there earlier. Inside was a glossy print of the photo Miss Rodriguez had sent. Dad and Emma, their triumphant, deceitful smiles. I held it up, turning slowly so everyone, especially the cameras, could see it. For those of you who haven't been following the news, I said, my voice laced with an icy sarcasm. This is Robert Chen, candidate for Senate, celebrating his daughter Emma's Princeton graduation. A lovely family moment, wouldn't you agree? I paused, letting the image sink in. Taken yesterday, at a special private ceremony. A ceremony arranged, I've recently learned, after my father offered Princeton a 7-figure donation to their library fund, contingent on them creating a scheduling conflict with my graduation today. The gasps were louder this time, accompanied by outraged murmurs. Here's your family values candidate, ladies and gentlemen, staging fake emergencies, lying to his own children, manipulating entire university schedules, and buying his way to perfect photo ops, all to prioritize one daughter over another for votes and political expediency. I looked directly at my father then, the man who was now visibly trembling. This picture isn't just a lie, Dad. It's the punchline to the cruel joke you've made of our family. The weight of vindication was immense, but the loss was a cold stone in my chest. This public immolation of my father was also the public death of any hope I'd ever harbored for his love or approval. Security had reached my father now, their hands gently but firmly on his arms. He didn't resist, his shoulders slumped in defeat, the fight gone out of him. He looked old, broken. As they began to escort him up the aisle, a gauntlet of flashing cameras and shocked stares, my eyes found Emma. She was standing near a side doorway just as the outline had predicted, her face a mask of pale, dawning horror. Her gaze met mine, and in her eyes, I saw not the smugness of the favored child, nor the tearful theatrics of our last encounter, but a profound, gut-wrenching understanding. She saw it all now, the years of manipulation, the way she too had been a pawn, her achievements curated, her loyalty exploited. In that moment, the animosity I'd carried for her for so long finally, truly dissolved, replaced by a strange, shared sorrow for the family we never really had. She gave a tiny, almost imperceptible shake of her head, a gesture of despair, of apology, perhaps even of surrender, before turning and slipping away, unnoticed by the reporters now swarming towards my father's retreating figure. The auditorium was in an uproar, a cacophony of shouts, questions, and camera clicks. The dean looked aghast, unsure how to regain control. I waited for the initial furor to die down slightly, for my father to be completely out of sight. Then, I turned back to the microphone, my composure intact, though my insides felt like a battlefield. The supportive, compassionate face of Miss Rodriguez caught my eye from the faculty section. She gave me a small, encouraging nod. I took another deep breath. As I was saying, I began, my voice, though softer now, still carrying an undeniable authority. Today is a day of culmination, of achievement. I continued with my prepared speech, though every word was now imbued with a new, raw significance. I spoke of challenges, of perseverance, of the pursuit of truth, both in science and in life. I spoke of the importance of integrity, of being true to oneself, even when faced with immense pressure to conform or to compromise one's values. I didn't mention my family again. I didn't need to. The empty chair where my father should have been, the lingering shock in the air, spoke volumes. When I finished, the applause was deafening, a sustained roar that felt less like a polite valedictory acknowledgement and more like a citywide endorsement. It was a wave of support, of understanding, that wrapped around me, holding me up. As the official ceremony concluded and the platform party began to disperse, Miss Rodriguez made her way over to me, bypassing the lingering reporters. She didn't say anything about the spectacle about my father. Instead, she took my hand, her grip warm and firm, and pressed my valedictorian medal and diploma into my palm. "Maya," she said, her voice a quiet anchor in the surrounding chaos, her eyes shining with a fierce pride that felt more genuine than any familial approval I'd ever known. She leaned in close, whispering so only I could hear. "Some families are born, others are chosen. You have a very big, very chosen family here today who are incredibly proud of you. I am chief among them." I could only nod, tears finally stinging my eyes. Not of sorrow, but of a profound, unexpected gratitude. She was right. Miss Rodriguez's words, "Some families are born, others are chosen," echoed in my mind long after the chaos of the graduation ceremony had subsided, long after the last reporter had packed up at their camera, hungry for the next phase of the scandal that was now irrevocably tied to my name and to my father's ruined ambitions. As I walked away from Stanford's hallowed grounds that afternoon, diploma in hand, medal around my neck, the weight of vindication felt less like a burden and more like a newly sprouted pair of wings. The loss was still there, a dull ache where a family's pride should have been, but it was no longer the defining note. Instead, there was a quiet strength, a profound clarity. Later that evening, sitting in my small apartment, the silence no longer felt like loneliness, but like peace. I replayed the day's impossible drama, my father's desperate interruption, my own voice amplified, steady and clear as I confronted him, the collective gasp of the audience, the dawning horror in Emma's eyes. And then, Miss Rodriguez, a steadfast beacon. A friend had called, breathless, after seeing the initial news clips. "Maya, you were incredible. You actually said it all to his face, with the whole world watching. How does it feel?" I'd smiled then, a genuine, tired smile. "It feels—" I'd paused, searching for the right words. "Like freedom." That night, looking at my reflection, no longer a strategic asset or an inconvenient liability, but simply Maya Chen, Stanford valedictorian, architect of her own damn narrative, I knew exactly what the core of it all was. And that's why, I whispered to the determined young woman staring back at me, the one who'd walked through fire and hadn't just survived but had emerged stronger, I'm proud to say I graduated alone, because I finally learned the difference between being loved and being used. It wasn't a cry of bitterness, but a declaration of independence, a hard-won truth that settled into my bones and became my foundation. 3 months later, the California sun streamed into my corner office, yes, corner office, at a vibrant Bay Area tech startup. They'd headhunted me a week after the graduation, impressed not just by my academic record, but as the quirky CEO had put it during my interview, by anyone who can stare down a corrupt politician on live television before calmly delivering a killer valedictorian speech about neural networks. That's the kind of creative problem solver we need. My life had taken a sharp, upward trajectory. I was leading a small team, working on cutting-edge AI, and for the first time, I felt valued for my mind, for my contributions, not for how well I fit into someone else's narrative. The fallout from Graduation Gate, as the media had gleefully dubbed it, had been swift and brutal. Dad's Senate dreams? Crushed, pulverized, atomized. He'd withdrawn from the race within days, his carefully constructed family values image in irreparable tatters. The library donation scandal, which had eventually broken wide thanks to an anonymous university source, I had my suspicions it was a deeply shamed Princeton official, was the final nail in his political coffin. Last I heard, he and Mom were taking time away from the public eye, which I translated as hiding out in their La Jolla mansion, probably blaming everyone but themselves. Emma? Her journey was quieter, more internal. She'd sent a tentative email about a month after the graduation. Just 2 lines. Maya, I'm doing a lot of thinking. About everything. I'm starting to see things differently. I hope you're okay. It wasn't an apology. Not in the grand, sweeping way our mother would have orchestrated for appearances, but it was something. A crack in the gilded cage she'd occupied for so long. I'd replied with a simple, I'm okay, Emma. Hope you find your way. Maybe one day we'd find a new kind of sisterhood, one built on truth instead of shared trauma and parental puppetry. For now, it was enough to know she was finally questioning the conditions of our parents' love, conditions neither of us should ever have accepted. Just this morning, a cheerful ping from my phone. It was Miss Rodriguez. A photo popped up, her own daughter, Sarah, beaming in a cap and gown from her high school graduation, Miss Rodriguez and her husband on either side, their faces alight with uncomplicated pride. The text read, Thinking of you, Maya. My Sarah graduated today. Look, we all made it. So proud of all you've accomplished. Coffee soon? You still owe me details on that new algorithm. R. I smiled, a warmth spreading through me that had nothing to do with the California sun. A family that actually shows up. Imagine that. Coffee definitely soon, Miss R, I texted back. And yes, we made it. The view from my office window overlooked the sprawling, innovative heart of Silicon Valley, a place where futures were built daily, where what you did mattered more than who your father was. The ghosts of my past still whispered sometimes, but their voices were fainter now, drowned out by the exciting hum of my new life, by the genuine laughter of colleagues, by the quiet satisfaction of work well done. I thought of the years spent chasing an approval that was always conditional, always just out of reach. The all-nighters, the sacrifices, the constant gnawing feeling of being second best, of being not quite enough. All of it a prelude to that one explosive moment of public reckoning and the quieter, more profound victory that followed. It wasn't about revenge, not anymore. It wasn't even entirely about justice. It was about reclaiming myself. It was about realizing that the validation I'd craved from them was a mirage, and the only approval that truly mattered was my own. The path had been brutal, the cost undeniably high, but the view from here, spectacular. And you know what? Sometimes the greatest, most liberating victory of all is looking back at the wreckage of a toxic past and realizing with a calm and settled heart that you never, ever needed their approval to begin with. You just needed to approve of yourself, and I finally, unequivocally, did.